Okay, hold on. Let's see if this works. Pop out chat. La da 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 da. Okay, I'm doing a sound check here. Sound check. Can anyone hear me in the chat? How does it sound? I need someone to tell me how it sounds. Because I have no idea. The sound screwed up on the last one. Anyone tell me if it sounds decent or not? I have no idea. Yeah, it is Renaissance. But I need, once again, can somebody tell me if the sound's coming through okay? I was having sound difficulties. Technical difficulties. And, I lost, like, 10 minutes of material that I was doing. Which is very tiresome. But, I guess I have to do these audio tests now, which suck. I'd rather just start the show. Well, I was recording, and then everyone said I sounded like a chipmunk, and that the audio was going in and out or something, and it didn't work, so I'm not sure what happened. Because it all sounded fine from my end. I did this audio test before I started recording, and then at some point, I guess maybe OBS did it. It might be OBS. I'm going to blame the software. I know some people think it's my computer and that. I don't think that. I think OBS screws things up sometimes, because my microphone and my audio and my computer and all that stuff's fine. I do stuff with that every day. I'm thinking the software OBS, no, I know. I hate having to start over. This is getting, we had to start over last week too. I just don't want to start over. I want to do the show. That's it. I'm not like angry or anything. I'm a little frustrated. I'm sick of having this issue. It seems like it's becoming a weekly issue. With this dang audio issue. Alright guys, so let's get back on track now that the audio is fine. I might make this a regular thing where I have to start the show and ask you guys if you can hear me, because for the last 2 live streams we've had this issue. So, let's get back to it. What I said at the opening of this, the first time I did this, was I said that the last 2 weekends have sucked. The Labor Day weekend was the worst Labor Day weekend since the 90s, and the weekend before that was the lowest weekend at the box office since 2001. They haven't been releasing any new movies lately. The last couple weeks. It's helped some films that have been out for a while, and they're actually doing a lot better because of that. They were able to hold on because there wasn't new films coming to drain some of their audience. But for the most part, it's been 2 abysmal weekends. The #1 film did 10 million 2 weekends in a row. It's getting kind of boring the last 2 weeks. We ended up talking more about other things than the actual box office because there was nothing to break down. Now, for a while, I had been getting a lot of flack for my for what I said about Spider-Man: Homecoming and my Dark Tower video. I was about to say Black Tower. That sounds like a wrestler or something. Black Tower. It makes me think of Hightower from the Police Academy movies. I did not say that right. Police Academy movies. Police Academy movies. Learn English, man. English. Do you speak it? So, what I was saying was, people thought I was coming across saying that the movie was a bomb or it wasn't performing well, and I never meant to say that. It may have just been poor wording. I was just saying at the time that it wasn't performing as well as I thought it was going to do, and, it showed that Sony really killed the brand of Spider-Man. And the film really needs the Chinese and Japanese box office to put it over the top, because where it was at last weekend was still under the first Amazing Spider-Man without inflation. So I was like, is this film, what's it going to do in China? That was the big debate. Your Chinese box office mattered. It actually ended up doing like 70 million opening weekend there. It did 50 million in the first 2 days. So Spider-Man: Homecoming, huge opening in China. It's at 823 million worldwide. I think I was saying a few weeks ago, I think this film would tap out at 800 million to 830. No, this film looks like it's going to make 900 million worldwide. At this point, you'd have to say that it could make about, I don't know, it'll probably pass Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I'm not sure. We're going to have to see that. It's Marvel's highest grossing debut film for a character. Because if you just count... Now, domestically, it's not. Iron Man 1 actually did better than this domestically. With inflation. You got it. Well, I'm going to count inflation on Iron Man, because that movie... I guess it was almost 10 years ago, but it's in the cinematic universe, so I think it's a more fair comparison to the whole Marvel franchise. Anyway, this film what it's doing now at the world... It's surpassed Wonder Woman. And the original Spider-Man without inflation, which made $821 million... And obviously with inflation, those films would make $1 billion. But still, this has surpassed the first Spider-Man film by Sam Raimi, and the second one, which actually made less than the first one, at the worldwide box office. Not domestically, obviously. But the whole thing that was coming out was that Wonder Woman was the highest grossing origin film or debut superhero film, because it surpassed Spider-Man domestically, and it was about to worldwide. Now, a lot of people weren't saying Spider-Man Homecoming was a debut origin film because they were arguing that Civil War was his debut. But I would argue Wonder Woman's debut was in Batman v Superman. Isn't it the same thing? Like, I want to hear what you guys say in the comments. Don't you think that Wonder Woman and Spider-Man are the exact same in this regard? Wonder Woman was introduced in Batman v Superman, then she got her own movie. And then Spider-Man was introduced in Civil War, and he got his own movie. Now, Wonder Woman was more of an origin story and told you all of her backstory. And Spider-Man Homecoming didn't exactly do that. It didn't actually tell Peter Parker's backstory that much. It was more about just the moment. But it's still a debut film for this version of Peter Parker. So it's going to be curious how people look at this in the box office world. Are they going to say Spider-Man Homecoming now is the highest grossing debut origin superhero film? Or are they going to give that title to Wonder Woman and exclude Spider-Man Homecoming? Because I've seen this in a lot of box office articles. And it's very curious to me that this is... It makes me wonder, are people just trying to give Wonder Woman that title? And they don't want to acknowledge that Spider-Man just passed it at the worldwide box office? Or are people going to say, well, yeah, but not domestically? I'm not sure, because I've been praising Wonder Woman all summer, and Wonder Woman had a lower budget, and, you know, I don't think anyone thought Wonder Woman was going to be the hit. You know, I'm not surprised a Spider-Man movie's making $900 million worldwide. It's Spider-Man. But it's going to be an interesting discussion as the year goes on with the superhero films this year, because I think nobody was expecting this movie and Wonder Woman to surpass Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I would have bet money 6 months ago Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was a guaranteed billion-dollar film. I would have put money down on it. Like, of course that's going to make $1 billion. It's going to make $600 million at the foreign box. I wasn't even close. I mean, it's about 140 mil away from that. But Guardians, if anything, at the international box office, underperformed. It didn't perform bad domestically, but Spider-Man and Wonder Woman are pretty much kicking Guardians' butt. In the regard of like how they're performing overall with budgets and all that. And their debut films, Guardians was a sequel. So that's an interesting discussion in itself too. You know, did the Guardians brand lose a little bit of appeal at the international box office from the first movie? It doesn't seem like it grew very much. Or was it just because Guardians 1 was such a surprise hit, they got as much of that market as they could get? And Spider-Man's always been a huge market, and it's finally been able to tap into that again. But when I was doing the stream the first time before the audio got crappy, I was really enjoying thinking about this, because I had been saying this film was going to tap out at under $800 million. At first I said it wasn't going to make $320. I was wrong on both of those accounts. I have no problem admitting I was wrong about the box office. It's part of the game. You get things right, you get things wrong. I was certainly wrong about my It opening weekend predictions. Any opening weekend prediction I gave on It was pretty much wrong. So don't saw It chapter 1 yesterday. Thumbs up. They pretty much nailed this one. I'm not going to talk about It right now because I'm doing a review of that movie, and if I talk about the movie itself right now, that'll kind of spoil a review. I'm just going to talk about the box office of it. I'm not going to go into what I feel about the movie or not. But you guys can talk about the movie in the chat if you saw it. I'm just saving a lot of material for a review coming out this week. Seems like Hardy can take his pick, so I don't see why he would have to put it's not film. Oh, you guys are talking about Venom. Okay, sorry, I didn't know. Tom Hardy and Venom. Yeah. Do you think Hardy would have signed on if it sucked? Oh, you're asking Game Maker. Well, I would give that question that Tom Hardy signed on to a bunch of bad movies, but that's just what it is. Like, Tom Hardy is really good at picking movies, but I've seen him in some bad movies too. Not a lot, obviously. But here's the thing with this. Spider-Man Homecoming is doing absolutely terrific. There is no more debate about this, whether or not it's underperforming, which did come across in the first few weekends when it dropped 62% and then 49%, 40%. Then these last couple weekends, it went up 30 and 67%. It dropped 45% this weekend. But still, at the foreign box office, it's right where Amazing Spider-Man 2 was at. It made $500 million at the international box office. It just had a terrible domestic showing. So this film's probably, I mean, it's looking like, I don't know if it's gonna, it'll probably surpass Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3, I think, made $554 million at the international box office, which was huge at the time in 2007. That was a crazy number when Spider-Man 3 made like $890 million. It was, at the time, that was really crazy stuff. When you could, even when you made a film that did under $1 billion back then, that was a big deal, because not every year we didn't get like 3 or 4. There's been 3 movies this year that have made $1 billion worldwide. Just this year alone, and there's going to be more. Spider-Man Homecoming, I mean, not Star Wars The Last Jedi is going to make $1 billion easily. So it's just a different era of blockbusters. The international box office is just a lot different. But still, Spider-Man Homecoming, it looks like it might do a little under $900 million worldwide. I'm not sure, but still, terrific showing. This is a great start to a franchise. The Robert Downey Jr. factor helped a lot, I think, and I think it was a brilliant marketing decision. Bringing Marvel in was the best thing Sony could have possibly done, and this is going to be their most successful film of the year, and hopefully... Now it looks like it's going to make some big profits. I could see this film making them $200 million profit just off the theatrical release. I mean, if it makes $900 million worldwide, you pretty much have to call it that they're going to make that kind of money. So, you know, big payday for Sony. They're going to make a lot of money off Spider-Man Homecoming. If they only had that merchandise money, man, it would just be out of the box. The fact that it's the best Spidey movie is what is enabled to have the legs. I think that's partially true, but I don't entirely agree. It doesn't necessarily have the best legs out of any Spider-Man flick. If you go look up Spider-Man 1, it actually had much better legs than this. I think it has more to do with the summer came in really heavy, and then it held on because the summer got kind of lamer as it went on. Like, I think Spider-Man should have actually performed better in its opening weekend, and I think it kind of flip-flopped. It's not that I don't think Spider-Man, but if you go look at the actual weekend drops of Spider-Man 1, the Sam Raimi film, that film's drops were incredibly small. It had like the second highest weekend of all. It had the third highest week, all before Dark Knight came out. So, but like I said, that was a different time. That was 2002. We didn't have a lot of superhero movies back then. A lot more people went to go to the movies back then than they do now. A lot less people are going to the theater now. So those are factors to consider. It's a different time now than it was. You're a little late. We just talked about Spider-Man. And you missed the first recording where the audio went bad and I sounded like a chipmunk. So we're on this adventure together, guys. Let's talk about another Sony flick. Baby Driver, $213 million worldwide. I've said everything I could say about Baby Driver. $34 million budget. I'm sure the marketing wasn't too high. Edgar Wright's most successful film. It's one of the best reviewed films of the year. $20 million opening weekend to $106 million domestic total is fantastic. It was a breakout film this summer that they put out there to counter program to the big blockbusters. It's still going. It's still making money. I'd say this is comparable to Get Out. Get Out had a much lower budget, mind you, but Get Out had and Get Out made a lot more money. But Get Out came out and was a genre flick that was perfectly timed and it hit the right spot. I think Baby Driver did the same thing, and it shows that there is a market for films like Baby Driver and Get Out and directors like Edgar Wright and Jordan Peele. Even though Hollywood keeps trying to pretend there's not a market for those guys, there is a market for those guys. You just have to make the right crowd-pleasing type of films. You have to release them right. I mean, I'd say a lot of Edgar Wright's other issues with, like, why Scott Pilgrim didn't do that well, I think Scott Pilgrim had terrible marketing. The World's End and all that, I think, had really bad... I love those movies, but I don't think the marketing was good, and I don't think they released them right. And I'd even argue Michael Cera hurt the box office of Scott Pilgrim, because at that time there was a lot of hate for him. He kind of became burnout for... He burned a lot of people out. But I'm just happy for Edgar Wright. This is a big win for Sony. Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, John Hamm. Everyone who's involved in this just benefits from this. I'd assume this helps the movie get some Oscar nominations. Because a few years ago, Drive came out and was loved like this. But Drive didn't really run away at the box office. Drive did like $75 million worldwide. And it kind of got ignored at the Oscars that year. I think Baby Driver, because of this... They're going to probably give it, film editing and sound. I don't think it's going to get like a Best Picture nomination, but I do think this is probably going to get some technical nominations. It might even get a cinematography nomination, honestly, for Bill Pope. It wouldn't shock me, but really not much to add to what I've said before. Baby Driver is a hit. Done and done. War for the Planet of the Apes, $369 million worldwide. I still think it needs to pass that $400 million mark worldwide for the studio to be happy at a break-even point. That domestic total is really disappointing. It's $5 million under its budget, not including marketing, and it's well below. I was about to go all Southern on you. It's way below the previous films. It's way below Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. That film made 710 million. And the other film, oh, whoops, I lost my place. My bad. And the film before that, it with inflation, let's go down and look. Rise of the Planet of the Apes made 197 million domestically. And so this film's way underperforming at the domestic box office. Once again, bad marketing, bad release date. I've discussed this over and over again. I think they screwed the pooch on this movie with how the distributor handled it. Not the movie itself. It's a good movie. I just don't think they did a great job of getting people to want to go see it. There wasn't a lot of hype for this movie, like at all. I remember a lot more hype for the other two films. And I think you got to put that on someone. I'm not sure. We're going to have to discuss this much because this performance of this film is interesting. It's the third film in an acclaimed trilogy. Even though it's doing a lot better than it was, it's still not, like, doing that great. I mean, I don't know if it'll make 500 million worldwide. It doesn't look like it will. So it's an interesting discussion. That's definitely the most disappointing performance of the summer, is that film in particular. That accent, man. Sometimes the southern side of me, because I am from the South, sometimes a little bit of southern kicks in because I was around so many people that did talk like that. So sometimes I can't control it. It screws up with me. Yeah, we know war was a marketing catastrophe. Yeah, true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the trailers were even bad. They were boring. They were very boring. They made it look like such a generic action movie, like it was just Caesar versus... They didn't even show you that it was kind of this prison movie and what it was really about. The marketing did such a bad job of conveying it being a good movie or not. It was just kind of like, well, I don't know if that will be good or if it's just another Dawn and they're remaking Dawn again. It doesn't look that different. That twang, though. Yep. Yeah, I like that twang. That twang's pretty nice. Sometimes you got that McConaughey voice where everything's real smooth and the women like it when you got that accent, when you're all right. But then there's the other accent that's not good. People don't like that one. They want the gentleman, man. They want that southern accent that sounds like it's a guy who's got his stuff together, He's figuring it out. Although I don't want to start leaning into my Louisiana, my Cajun background there a little bit. All right, let's keep going. Some linguist or someone's going to come up. Someone's going to be like, you sound terrible. You don't know what Southern people sound like. I'm like, I lived in the South for 20 years. If you think people don't sound like Southern stereotypes, you've never been in the parts of the South that I've been in. Go to West Texas. You will hear the most stereotypical like things you've ever... That movie Hell or High Water is perfectly captures what West Texas is like. It's just like James God, I can't believe I can't think of his name. Jeff Bridges in that movie where he's like, oh, let's go down here and all that. That's how people talk there. It's ridiculous. I gotta go find these bank robbers. Oh, Billy Bob and Sling Blade is ridiculous. So I'll give him credit though, it's iconic. He made that voice iconic. So what? And Sling Blade's a great movie. So I used to be able to speak a little French, but I know more German. When I was in school, I studied German. I know Essen in German's eat. I think it's Essen. I used to know German words and phrases. But I'm much more fascinated with English. Even though I can't speak it, English language, and my background's French. That's what's weird. I'm like half French, half German, which is kind of an odd thing to be, 50-50 French German. But when I lived down there, I used to know a little bit, but I haven't lived there for a few years. But all of my family's very much, they're the most stereotypical Cajun you could imagine, like the bayou and all that. It's ridiculous. I think it screwed up my way of speaking because I had too many people talking around me that had crazy accents, and I'm like, where are you from? My mother's grandfather was a man covered in ridiculous hair. He had hair all over his back and stuff. He looked like a werewolf man. He looked like Robin Williams ×2. And he would come and make God, I can't remember what it's called. I feel so stupid now. It's a Cajun meal when you make a bunch of rice and stuff like that and you mix it together and you just put random meats in it and stuff like sausages and whatever you want in there. But he used to come and make that for me, and he was actually pretty great. He was a great guy. He had a funeral in New Orleans. They don't put you in the ground when they bury you. I went to his funeral, And the whole time, everyone there, it was like everyone was making jokes and stuff, and it was just like, it was the most Cajun thing you could possibly imagine. All the food was that way. He lived like right around New Orleans. Um, and that's, oh God, Don Cheadle's Cockney accent in Oceans is so awful. He probably did the worst accent ever and got a pass for it just because he was Don Cheadle. Gumbo, yeah, Gumbo. Sorry, man. Yeah, Gumbo. Yeah, my mother's, well, my mother's grandfather, not my, I guess, but not my grandfather, but he made the best gumbo I ever had. He was a very old man, and he was old, but he made the best gumbo I ever had. He was quite a character, and he used to speak French. He used to, oh, Southern Comfort's one of my favorite movies of all time, but he used to speak French to me, and I didn't know what he was saying, but he knew it very well. So that's the only thing I have, but I do, I used to take German in school a little bit. German was very hard though. Oh man, gumbo, jambalaya. I've heard it say jambalaya, stuff like that. There's different ways to say that stuff. People think that there's just one way. And then what's the other? Boudin, the sausage. Hey, Boudin, man. Boudin's this delicious sausage. You can go to a crappy gas station somewhere in Louisiana and get the best freaking sausage you've ever had there. It's just insane. Let's get back to the box office, though. Let's get back to that. Okay, Wonder Woman. 816 million worldwide, absolutely terrific. 410 million domestic. The budget's really conservative. 149 million in 2017. That's a crazy low budget. So many movies today go way. I mean, the average budget now is 170 million, really, for your typical blockbuster, if not more. So good job on the budget on this flick. Well done for Patty Jenkins and crew. Worldwide, it's been passed by Spider-Man now, so it's kind of lost that title. But domestically, this has surpassed Guardians and Spider-Man. And the domestic box office, as far as I know, studios get a lot more of the percentage of the ticket price from those movies domestically. Because I don't know, I don't know how much they get from each market. Like, I don't know if Wonder Woman, if they got much from the Asian release or not. But I know they made a lot of money off this domestic total. I know this is great for Warner Brothers. I mean, this is terrific. I mean, I've talked about this week by week. It's just become boringly like perfect, I guess, in a sense. Like, hey, Wonder Woman. It's like the sky is blue. There's the clouds look white. Grass is green. Wonder Woman is a big hit at the box office and one of the most successful superhero films of all time. It's just what it is. I can't add anything more to it. There's no insight to add to it. It just is what it is. There's nothing interesting to discuss about Wonder Woman anymore. If Sony ever decided on that Taxi Driver sequel or remake, I would burn down that building. That's funny. Boudin is so good. Yeah, dude, Boudin's like, I can't get it up here. I'm up in Pennsylvania and I can't get... Yeah, Boudin sausage sandwiches. I live up in Pennsylvania now and I can't get Boudin anywhere. You can go buy it at the store, but it's not the same. Because down there you could just drive a little bit and get... Usually from Europe, it's 50%. In China, it's only 25%. So I'm not wrong in assuming that Warner Brothers made more profit, perhaps, than someone else because of Wonder Woman's domestic total. I think I'm right on that, because Spider-Man did well here, and so did Guardians, but how well Wonder Woman did here with its budget, I have to assume that's a big profit payday for Warner Brothers. Because you want your movie to do well domestically more than anything. I don't think Gal Gadot got back end on Wonder Woman, and I don't think Chris Pine got back end on Wonder Woman. I'm assuming Zack Snyder, because he was a producer on it, where he probably got a little bit of money. And I have a theory that Joss Whedon actually worked on that movie, but people don't believe. I actually have a feeling Joss Whedon might have actually been involved somewhat with Wonder Woman. So I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Patty Jenkins might have got some, just because she was the director and they liked what they saw. So who knows? Well, the thing about Wonder Woman is it's the first time we're getting a sequel so quickly with Justice League. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, that is funny. There is going to be, like, Wonder Woman 2 in, like, the next month. You guys are wanting me to... Let's see how long it's going on. We're going, yeah, 20... I need to get to the #1 movie, because I'm sure that's all anyone wants to talk about. So let's just do a speed round at the box office and get through some of these films. I have a lot to discuss, but I want to talk about the #1 movie, because I was totally wrong on my predictions. Everyone was wrong on their predictions. people asked me weeks ago, they're like, what's the prediction? And I was like, 55 million. And I was even going higher than that. I was saying 70 million. If you guys remember last week, and I said at one point the movie might reach 70 million, I was wrong on both counts. The movie way overperformed. I mean, it broke records. So I want to get to that film because that's going to be fun to discuss. Anyway, also, it brings up a great parallel to this film. So Dark Tower, 107 million worldwide, $60 million budget. Don't know what the marketing budget is. Film probably didn't lose them much money because they split costs on this and they had it set up pretty good. But still, I'd say it's a bomb. It didn't make enough money to warrant a sequel or anything coming from it. And it's not a hit or anything. The domestic total's terrible. It didn't even make 50 million. So I have no problem calling Dark Tower a bomb. Even if they made some money on it, it's a bomb, no matter how you try to spin it. Dr. Blood Money, I have, but I'm not going to review it, and I'm holding my thoughts on it until I do my review. I'm not going to talk about it until I do my review, because I don't want to, because I feel like if I say the stuff I want to say now, then it's going to ruin you guys watching the review, so what's the point, you know? I don't mind talking about the movies after I see them, but I don't want to review them before the review comes on. It kind of screws up my channel. Girls Trip, 113 mil domestic, 130 million worldwide, $19 million budget, huge hit. Girls Trip 2 is going to happen. No doubt in my mind. I've been saying this for weeks. This film is a major, major success. Oh, by the way, I've been rewatching Death Note since I watched the movie on, I've been rewatching it on YouTube. I'm on episode 33 right now, and man, I gotta say, I'm really wanting to go do a Death Note anime review just because I forgot about how good the show was. I haven't watched the show in almost 10 years. I mean, I originally watched Death Note in, like, 2007. I guess it has been 10 years. I watched it 10 years ago, and I hadn't seen it since. And I was like, man, Death Note holds up so well. And I have more criticisms for the live-action movie now. Like, I have more criticisms now rewatching the anime and remembering how good it is. So there might be some Death Note videos coming out. Let's move up to the film to really talk about success-wise here in a lot of ways. Despicable Me 3, $1 billion worldwide. It did it, man. $746 million at the international box office, $259 million domestically. The director's previous films, Minions, all did well. Minions made $1.1 billion. And Despicable Me 2 made $970 million. And actually, it did about $100 million more at the domestic box office than the previous film. But this film's done over about $150 million more at the international box office. I mean, let's go back to that first Despicable Me film. Who knew this was Shrek? That's really what this is. This is Shrek. This is Shrek 1, and then Shrek 2 and Shrek... This is the same kind of box office pattern. Like, who knew that this character in the menu... This is the donkey. This is Shrek. This is a huge breakout film that became, like, iconic. Little kids just started to love it, and then the sequel comes out, everyone goes to see it. Minions becomes one of the biggest animated films of all time. And then here we are with the third film in the trilogy, and much like the third Shrek film, it's you know, pretty much Shrek 3 pretty much made $1 billion. I think it was like, it was, you know, it wasn't quite that, but, you know, pretty much Shrek 2 and 3, when you look at them now, were pretty much billion-dollar films. They came out so long ago. But yeah, this is I mean, this has got to be the most popular modern-day animated franchise. You can't name... I mean, Zootopia did $1 billion, and it might be a franchise, so that's up for debate. But has any franchise showed this level of box office power from movie to movie? I mean, people don't even care about the quality of the Illumination films. Like, they don't care if Minions sucks, or Secret Life of Pets, or Sing is a bad movie. They don't care. They don't care if this is the same movie over again, except for Trey Parker. I mean, it made $1 billion on an $80 million budget. This is probably going to be the most profitable film of the year. Last year, Secret Life of Pets was the most profitable film of the year, and it made like almost $400 million. I just don't see how this film isn't going to make them, like, at this point, they're going to make $350–400 million off this movie alone. That's not counting the merchandising they make off the Minions. Oh my god. Illumination is just printing money. They're just printing money. No, I'm not saying Shrek 3 was a good movie. It was that kind of franchise, like Shrek, everyone went to go see it, you know? But yeah, I mean, because let me go hold on real quick before we get to the #1 movie real fast, because I'm procrastinating here. If you look at the worldwide box office, yeah, #1, Beauty and the Beast, Fate and the Furious both did 1.2 billion. Here we are, Despicable Me 3, man, 1 billion. That's crazy. And we know Star Wars is going to reach that total, so we're definitely looking at something. Okay, a movie I want to bring up real quick because I forgot to mention it last week, and I feel terrible about that because it's so important to talk about. Because this is actually maybe the most important film in the market right now. Wolf Warrior 2, $30 million budget. This film has made $852 million worldwide. $849 million of that, I think, is exclusively in China. This is the Force Awakens or Avatar of China. This film, I talked to one of the subscribers last week. This kind of opens up the question, will China even let America, because it's very tough to get a release in China. You have to get past the censors and all that. But the big reason the Chinese market let them bring those movies over was to help the box office because people were going to see movies like Transformers. But if they can make their own films that do this well, there's very few American films in the history of cinema that have made this much money domestically in the States. This is one of the greatest domestic performances for a film of all time. And it shows that China does not need the U.S. at all to have a film that's a billion-dollar movie, basically. And the budget's way lower than your typical film. Could you imagine the profit they're going to make off this movie? It'd be hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, The Mermaid a couple years ago made like, or it might have been last year, The Mermaid made like $550 million, and I thought that was going to be the tap-out point. No, China's going to have a billion-dollar domestic film at some point, and it looks like it's going that way. So that market's just blowing up. And that film is very important for the future of the international box office and how those releases are going to go. We have to think about that. So it's pretty interesting. Chinese government lies its ass, so I'll believe these figures when, well, I don't know when, but not right now. I mean, I agree the Chinese government lies a lot, but I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard to lie about the box office a lot of the time because so many people are looking at those numbers. Like, I mean, you can lie a little bit, I think. But it's tough to lie about hundreds of millions of dollars unless you're funneling that money somewhere. I don't know. No, don't be wrong. Yeah, 1.3 billion Chinese people, give or take a few hundred million people. It looks more and more can watch movies. Yeah, apparently the Chinese are really like going to films right now. Part of the reason it did so well is because it's the blackout for foreign movies. Because of the blackout for foreign... Oh, so they weren't letting foreign movies in China? So it was like the only big film in China for a little while? Oh, so there's not... I guess that's the difference. In America, we have so many movies come out all year that it's tough for one film to dominate the box office anymore. And Wolf Warrior 2 didn't really have any major competition. But maybe China likes it better that way? I don't know. You know, I don't know how they're going to go about the future with that. God, my computer's being a little loud. Grace Randolph states they're already found manipulating ticket sales. Well, I hope that... I mean, I can't wait to see that story break, man. If it comes out that China's actually been lying about the box office, that would be a big deal. I can't wait to see if that comes out. I haven't read anything about that on any major box office analysis sites so far, but I'll take your word for it. That would be interesting. That would definitely be an interesting thing if that came out. But we just have to take the numbers on face value, though, dude. Like, it's the Hollywood and counting. It's like how they claim Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix never made any money, even though it made $940 million. So, you know, we don't really know, so we just have to go off what we see. So I have to take Wolf Warrior 2 on what it is. I can't go into the conspiracy of what reality is, because we don't know what any movie actually costs or what it's making or not. I guarantee you Hollywood lies about every single movie that's ever been made. I guarantee you every big budget film, they lie about a lot of stuff. So it's tough to call, man. Like, I've never really bought into a lot of profits, and you know, I think studios try as hard as they can to look like they're losing money. They want to look like they're losing money. When in reality, I don't think they're losing as much money as they like to put out there. If China blocks Hollywood, we'll have to depend on 1 billion Indians. Okay, let's keep going up. Emoji Movie, 82 million domestic, 170 million worldwide. I'd say officially now this film has made a profit. It's definitely broken even with the $50 million budget, although I'm sure the marketing was high. I don't think they made any money off the domestic total, but this does look like it's going to make 200 million worldwide, so can't deny the success of this flick. It's a very moderate success, though. That's an animated film. An animated film not even doing 100 mil domestic? Come on, that's terrible. Really think about that. Animated films are like the go-to easy way to make big profits. So, and especially when you compare this to Despicable Me 3 right under it that cost 30 million more and made $1 billion, it makes the Emoji Movie look terrible, like, by comparison. Like, Illumination is much better at doing this than Sony. Sony's never had a huge hit in their anime. They've had, don't get me wrong, Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2 are huge hits, but they've never had Despicable Me type money. So I mean, Hotel Transylvania did way better than this. That's the only franchise they have that seems to have real box office power. That sells a lot of merchandise. I see a lot of merchandise all the time for Hotel Transylvania. But that's what you get when you hire Genndy Tartakovsky and you let him do stuff. He actually brings in... It turns out good animators are the secret to making good animated films. Who knew that? Huh? It's crazy. Nut Job 2. 36 million worldwide. Still hasn't made back its budget. Damn it. Why did it go back to here? That was a weird jump. Hold on. I wanted to check something real quick before we move up. Cars 3. I want to see where Cars 3 is at. 350 million worldwide. $175 million budget, not including marketing. I'd say they're probably about at their break-even point. I'd say 350 million worldwide is probably where they've had to have broke even on this movie. There's no way. But that doesn't mean they're making a lot of profit. But as we've said before, we all seem to agree they just made this film to sell merchandise because the Cars franchise has sold like $10 billion in merchandise. So they've probably made $1 billion in merchandising off this film. So who cares how it performed at the box office, really? All it does that I don't like is it once again diminishes the Pixar brand. And I don't appreciate that, or John Lasseter not caring about the Pixar brand. Because the Pixar brand used to mean something. Kind of like Miyazaki's very protective over what the Ghibli brand is. Yeah, no, it's true. When it comes to distribution fees, things can get pretty shady. It's all shady, man. Anything involving business is shady. Anything involving millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, is shady. There's really no way to spin it. Any company that's making that kind of money, there's stuff going on that we don't know. And that's just a fact of business. That's how it works. So there's not much we can do about it. We'll never know the truth, really. As much as we're curious about what is actually going on and how much stuff actually costs, we'll never know. I mean, they really don't have to answer to anyone as much as people think they do. It's not like... Is Coco a Pixar... I think Coco's a Pixar movie. I'm not sure. I think that movie is, yeah. Logan Lucky, 25 mil domestic, pretty bad performance. It's a Soderbergh bomb, unfortunately. Dunkirk, it is at the Revenant's box office total right now, 183 mil domestic. That is terrific. I way underestimated this movie. I thought a few weekends ago this film was going to tap out at 165 million, maybe even 170 million. I was at the high end, because if you see here, it was having pretty steep drops, 39, 40%. Those aren't terrible. But then it had 2 weekends in a row where it went up, and that really helped put it over the top. It's going to make 500 million worldwide. That is official now. Originally, I heard this film cost 150 million, but they claimed because of a tax rebate, the film's only 100 million. I don't think the film looked like a $150 million film to me. It looked like... But this, once again, what's the actual budget of Dunkirk? Do we know? Did they actually spend 150 million on this, or 120 million? They never really let you know the full answer. But let's just go with what we know. 100 million. Let's say the budget was 50. The marketing budget was 50 million, which sounds fair. And Nolan can get a 50 million marketing campaign behind his movie. And Dunkirk had plenty of marketing, I think. But 50 million opening weekend. I didn't know if it would reach the Revenant domestic total, because I didn't know if it would hold as well as the Revenant, but it has. And I'd say that's the kind of movie we need to compare it to. The Revenant cost $135 million. It was an art house blockbuster. It didn't have a lot of dialogue. A lot of people didn't know if it was going to bomb or not. Because Iñárritu didn't really have a big... Like, Birdman made money, but it wasn't a blockbuster. Then the film made 530 mil worldwide, made a bunch of profit, got Oscar noms. I think this is a similar situation. It's a period piece. It's not your typical mainstream film, blockbuster film. But if you make adult movies for adult audiences that want to go see those kinds of films and are interesting and experimental, they can show up at the box office. I said this film probably needed to make 400 million worldwide for the studio to be really happy with it. 500 million worldwide just seems like icing on the cake. I mean, if the budget's actually 100 million and this makes over 500 million worldwide, that's a successful movie. And that domestic total is great. I mean, it's still under Interstellar and, and Inception and Dark Knight and all that stuff. And, it's not close to even Interstellar with inflation. But still, I mean, Nolan made a war film He made a film that's not a big genre movie. War films don't typically make money like this outside of Saving Private Ryan or like American Sniper. You know, go look at most war films in recent years. They don't make a lot of money. They're not big hits. So this really broke out in a way like, you know, the great war films do. And it's, you know, 183 mil domestic is a dang impressive total. That's only going to help it with Oscar nominations, because the Oscars do like to always throw in a few films in there that did make a lot of money, but they also got the reviews. So I'm seeing this film getting like 10 Oscar nominations at this point. But still, it's going to pass 500 million worldwide. It'll be Nolan's. How many films has he had do that? Nolan has had, when this happens, it'll be his it'll be his fifth movie to make 500 million worldwide. So that's, to me, an impressive filmography. He's had 2 films make $1 billion, but to have 5 films all make over 500 million, and all of them made profit after that point, I'd say that that's a very successful career, and this is going to continue the trend of Christopher Nolan getting to do whatever he wants. Because this is kind of different from where Tarantino was at. Recently, Tarantino was kind of riding the similar wave, where he was getting a new box office, you know, a growth. Oh, they have Amir's producer. Let me go as director. If you look here, Tarantino had Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds, were his biggest films since Pulp Fiction. And they made 180 mil with and then 143 mil. Now, their original runs, they did like 160 to 120. And then The Hateful Eight came out, and I think a lot of people thought it was going to perform on par with those. And it made 155 million worldwide on a $44 million budget. This wasn't a bomb at all. But it certainly was a huge drop from his previous 2 films, and the domestic total. I mean, Tarantino seemed like he was a lockdown $100 million director, guaranteed. I mean, I thought I thought he couldn't make a film that did make 100 million, because before he wasn't always that way. Kill Bill, you know, those were big hit movies, but even with inflation, they barely made 100 million. Jackie Brown and all that. But Hateful Eight's actually one of his lowest grossing films. So I was wondering if Dunkirk was going to go that way. I was thinking, well, Dunkirk will probably do well, but it's going to probably be Nolan's, like, you know, least lowest grossing film. It's probably going to do like Batman Begins money or something like that. Well, actually, Batman Begins domestic total would be great. But I meant like worldwide. Is it going to probably make but this is doing better than I think anyone thought it was going to do, honestly. I don't think anyone really thought this would make 500 million. You know, pretty well. I mean, it's done it pretty easily. It hasn't had a difficult time to get to this point. So, once, you know, big success. I think Warner Brothers released that movie, right? So they have that and Wonder Woman. 3 of them were Batman. I would argue that, man, because you got to consider that he made 2 Batman films that made $1 billion, and DC hasn't been able to recreate that success with Batman v Superman or Man of Steel. Even Wonder Woman is successful. It has. Like, the only superhero films that have made $1 billion worldwide are Marvel films with Iron Man in them, or like Avengers flicks. Nolan's the first guy who made $1 billion superhero film with Dark Knight, and he changed how people viewed superhero films at the international. It showed you that they could make that kind of money, and they could get Oscar nominations. If every Batman film made $1 billion, but you forget Batman Returns way underperformed in comparison to the first Batman film. It dropped terribly, actually, from Batman. Batman Forever did really well, and then Batman and Robin didn't do well at all. Outside of merchandise. Then Batman Begins came out and did really good, but not great. And then the DVD sales were huge on Batman Begins. It made $200 million in DVD sales, and it became a big cult classic for people. And then Dark Knight came out, made $1 billion, and then Dark Knight Rises comes out and makes like $1.1 billion. So it's not that easy just because you have Batman in the movie. Because with that argument, Batman v Superman would have made $1 billion because it had Batman and Superman in it. And it didn't even, it was way off from $1 billion. It was like 130 million from, and Nolan's domestic totals are insane. Like Dark Knight with inflation made like $700 million domestic about. Like, that's huge. That's absolutely, yeah. Batman Begins had great word of mouth, you know? And I think that word of mouth carried through the whole trilogy because people liked Batman Begins so much. So I'm not sure. I mean, and also Inception making the money it did, dude. That's crazy. Inception made $830 million worldwide. That's crazy for a movie like that. I read all of the predictions for Inception when it came out. Everyone was like 500 million worldwide, lock off. And then yeah, and look what happened. They got that back, and then they can't. I mean, it's always been this back and forth. Nolan's the only guy that consistently made 3 Batman films that each made more money than the previous one. He made one film that made money, the second one made more money, and then the third one made more money worldwide. He's the only guy to do that with the Batman franchise. Typically with Batman, one film does really well and then the next film drops off. That isn't what happened with Christopher Nolan. He had 3 successful films in a row. And you know, and that goes for Batman Begins. You know, he brought back the franchise. People really, you don't have to like that movie, but people love Batman Begins, and it brought the franchise back. Totally. And that movie still played on TV all the time on FX or on AMC, and I know pretty much everyone I know has seen that movie. I'm not trying to overpraise Nolan, but you can't deny the box office power, man. There's only like 3 or 4 directors who have the power Nolan has. There's Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, and like maybe Peter Jack, who can get like Inception 825 million worldwide, Interstellar made 675 million worldwide. Even Memento did really well, and Insomnia did really well. So I'm not really sure. Hey, I really like Days of Future Past. I actually think that's Bryan Singer's like second best movie behind Usual Suspects. I think he did a really good job with that. I mean, I don't like a couple of Nolan's films. I didn't like Dark Knight Rises or Interstellar, but they made a lot of money. And he's pretty much selling those movies on his name, which you don't really get to do today as a filmmaker. Directors don't sell movies on their names. We sell movies on superheroes. But it's pretty impressive that you know, it's really impressive that Nolan's able to make his Saving Private Ryan. This is I mean, it's not making the money Saving Private Ryan did, but it's definitely one of those moments when a war film's become a blockbuster. Crap, we're taking a long time to get to number 1. Okay, let's talk about Leap real quick. Leap, 98 million worldwide. Very weird. I don't know what to say, foreign animated film. $25 million for Wind River. This is actually a really good indie performance. $11 million budget. I know they had to buy the movie and and they had to market it. So I'm sure they're not making profit off this, but still good performance for the kind of movie it is. Annabelle Creation, 96 million domestic, 280 million worldwide. This is a crazy good performance, and this in the number 1 movie just shows that horror films are the king money makers of Hollywood, man. I mean, this is the wow, the same guy worked on these screenplays worked on the It screenplay. That's funny. But look at this, the first Annabelle film. That film cost $6.5 million, made $256 million worldwide. Huge profit. This film cost $15 million and is at 200. This is going to make $300 million worldwide. This is probably going to outperform The Conjuring 2 at the domestic box office, which is crazy. Because this is just a spin-off of the Conjuring franchise. And you got to look at this. $15 million budget. It's going to make $100 million domestic. Horror is alive in Hollywood, and people like it. The horror films always come in at lower budgets, and then they can open like this and even hold on to like this. I mean, Get Out was a horror film. Look at the money it made. Split was kind of a horror thriller. Look at the money that made. Look at the money this is making. And then the number 1 movie this weekend really solidifies that fact. So my tip for any studio out there, make horror films. Forget the comedies and the superhero films. You can make these low-budget horror films all year. And look at these profits, man. A movie that makes $300 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. I mean, that's an accountant's dream. That's what you want, man. That is just good box office. You can't deny it. It is just that is box office 101. Make a $15 million movie and have it make $100 million. I mean, dang. James Wan did it with the Conjuring films, very low budget films that made the second one had a bigger budget, but still, yeah. Look, James Wan. Look at what he's produced recently. Lights Out, he produced $148 million worldwide on a $5 million budget. Insidious Chapter 3, $112 on a 10. Annabelle, let me look at his directing. Let's just go back and just show you the Conjuring box office too. Look, the Conjuring worldwide made $318 million on a $20 million budget, and the Conjuring 2 made $320 million on a $40 million budget. And Annabelle is doing those numbers right now. It's doing the Conjuring numbers, which is insane. So, needless to say, horror is alive and well, more so than I think, maybe outside of the superhero genre, obviously. They also, companies seem to give directors a little bit more freedom in horror films because the budgets are so low. So it doesn't see they don't feel like they're so studio made. It feels like they just give these directors. That's why some of them are bad and some of them are good, because a lot of the time the filmmakers are good or bad, I think. But I do think they make a lot of bad ones. But I don't really fault the producers for that or the filmmakers. It's what people want to go see. I don't like jump scares, but other people do. Home Again. This is Reese Witherspoon. $9 million opening weekend. There was a point Reese Witherspoon was a big box office draw, like a few years ago. You know, if you go back to when Sweet Home Alabama came out. Look, that film made $200 million with inflation. That film made $180 million worldwide. I mean, it was a big hit. Legally Blonde was a big hit. Walk the Line was a big hit. I mean, she was a movie star. You know, there was a point that, yeah, if she was in a movie, it did well, and she was a big leading actress. I don't know if her career just dropped off because she hasn't been anything, but this is a pretty bad opening weekend. I mean, I didn't see trailers for this film or anything, but there was a point Reese Witherspoon was like a major movie star, and she just kind of isn't that anymore. So it's whatever it is. Anyway, let's get to the number one movie. Let's make sure there's nothing to check right away before we go. Let's check Pirates real quick, see where it's at. Pirates is right under 800 million. Let's see if I missed anything here. Nope, I don't think there's anything to talk about. All right, let's get to the number one film. We would have gotten here earlier if the first stream didn't screw up in the audio department. And I'm so sick of my voice having this like phlegm in it. Anyway, we're at the 50-minute mark, so we're right under an hour, and I'm finally to the number one movie, which is why most people clicked on this video, was to hear about the number one movie. That is the adaptation of Stephen King's It. This film had a long production history. They've been talking about making an It movie for pretty much my whole life. I heard about this 10 years ago. There was a point that they got Cary Fukunaga attached to it, who was worked on the first season of True Detective and directed Beasts of No Nation for Netflix. One of my favorite films of the last 5 years. He was attached to it, and he worked on the script. He was let go, and they fought on creative differences. At the time, they were saying it was budgetary reasons, but later it came out that it was because Cary Fukunaga's script had some very dark content with the children, and a lot of parents were uncomfortable with it, and they couldn't agree on the tone of the film. So then they brought in Andre Muschietti, who directed Mama, which ended up being a really big hit. Mama cost $15 million, was produced by Guillermo del Toro, and it opened to $28 million, had Jamie Lannister in it. Made about $150 million worldwide. So he was a solid pick financially, and Mama got okay reviews. He was certainly no Cary Fukunaga. Now, I had heard the budget was always around $32 million, and Cary Fukunaga confirmed this. So I'm pretty sure these are reliable numbers. Cary Fukunaga even came out and said we always agreed on the budget being around $30 million, and they planned on doing 2 films, one with the kids, one with the adult. Now, they did keep a lot of stuff from Fukunaga's script, and he did get a story credit, because they kept elements of a screenplay. They did rewrite a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say Cary Fukunaga wrote this movie, but they did keep things from his original script. So, you know, at least he got a writing credit, and he'll get paid for that, which is really cool, and his name's on the movie. So that's pretty awesome. But I've been hearing about an It movie for so long, and I love Fukunaga, and I was really excited to see his film, and he spent years working on it, and he put a lot of his own personal stuff, and I think he would have made The Shining. I really think he would have made the equivalent of Stanley Kubrick making The Shining for Stephen King's It. However, that's not what the studio wanted, and that's fine, because the numbers are in the name here. So they bring in this director who's had one hit movie. The trailer comes out. It's the biggest trailer ever. In 24 hours, it gets an insane amount of hits. There's a lot of factors to unpack here. There's just a lot of factors to unpack here. One, this was a huge book when it came out in 1986. I think it was the #1 selling book of that year. In 1986, almost everyone read it. I don't think he was going to keep that. I think he was going to keep that sequence. Yeah, he was going to have a lot of screwed up humor. Like he wanted it to kind of be a metaphor for, having sex and stuff. Cary Fukunaga's script was very sexual, and they cut a lot of that out of the movie. He was making something very, very kind of screwed up. But I kind of wanted to see that, but that's just me, But anyway, they bring in this guy. The film, there's a lot of factors to include here, okay? So we have to credit the miniseries in the 90s because it had huge ratings, and Tim Curry's role as Pennywise was iconic and has never really died off in culture. People still buy t-shirts. I still see t-shirts of Pennywise from that miniseries with Tim Curry. I mean, I'd say Tim Curry contributed just as much to the box office of this film as Stephen King did. And anyone who doesn't give Tim Curry that credit is being a jerk. Because that miniseries is so nostalgic for so many, even if it's aged horribly and it doesn't hold up. Everyone talks about Tim Curry in that miniseries. And it never died off. People reference it. You see it on YouTube. It's genius. You know, it really he made that role so iconic, it stuck around. Kind of like what he did with Rocky Horror. Tim Curry made Frankenfurter such a classic character. That character's still famous today, and we still see it today. I think, don't get me wrong, that scene in the book is the worst thing Stephen King ever wrote. But Fukunaga, I'm not sure if he was going to totally stick with that stuff. He was going to play around with that kind of stuff a little bit more interesting. He had these really screwed up sequences. Like, I don't think he was going to go directly that way 100%. You know, I just would have liked to have known what he was going to do with it, because horror films essentially should be challenging and show you things that you don't want to see. They should be screwed up and bother you on an intellectual, psychological level. They should go further. They should be innovative. They should, I mean, in my opinion, they should be screwed up as much as they possibly can be without gore. You know, and Fukunaga is a master of showing you true horror, the horror of humanity, at the deepest core of it, without falling into gore. True Detective has some of the most wonderfully nuanced direction I've ever seen of violence. Same with Beasts of No Nation. In Beasts of No Nation, he has little kids being child soldiers, and they're going through and killing people, and he turns it into art. So I'm going to have to lean with, you know, Fukunaga. If you don't like that movie, that's fine, but I still think he had an artistic vision that wasn't based in any kind of malice. But let's unpack this. Tim Curry's performance, iconic, lasted for years. Pennywise became so iconic, the clown craze that's been going on the last few years. All these clowns that have been everywhere popping up. It made the clown thing popular again. It brought the clown thing back to the top of the game. It made clowns the biggest... I mean, clowns have been a horror icon now for decades. And nobody's really made a big clown movie. A few movies have. A few films have made really deep big clown films, but not many. It's because everyone's always going to associate it with Pennywise and all that stuff. And what's great here is they were able to sit on this film for a long time and build hype up. So everybody that was a kid that watched the original miniseries or read the book, and a lot of people read that book as a kid or a teenager, and it was a big book for them in their lives. I don't think it's a very good book, actually. I actually think it's one of Stephen King's worst books. And I have a lot of, except for the stuff with the Losers Club and Pennywise, but I actually think half that book's just total garbage and cocaine-era Stephen King indulgence, and he was trying to write The Dark Tower before, and he should have just wrote The Dark Tower and let it be a horror story. It at its, God, now I'm doing my It review, crap. It at its best is a dark Ray Bradbury-esque horror story about the loss of innocence. And when you lose the sense of childhood wonder and go into adulthood. Oh, I love Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I have a screening of that movie locally, like every year. I love that movie. I met a very hot girl at a screening of that movie once. It was crazy. But the thing about it is they set on this so well. This movie wouldn't have done this well 5 years ago. This movie wouldn't have done this well 3 years ago. This was the perfect release date. Release this movie in October. Release it exactly right now. Go that point. I mean, it was terrific. You really can't knock it here. They could have spent $60-70 million on this film, and the opening weekend would have been just the same. It was absolutely terrific. I think everyone thought 70-80 million. This is like Deadpool. This changes the game. It's almost why I wish Fukunaga had made the film, because this is showing that adult screwed up movies can be mainstream in Hollywood now. So then the next factor to consider, the film got good reviews. A lot of the issue was people were thinking the film was going to do poorly, and people are obsessed with Rotten Tomatoes now. There's a New York Times article here that I might cover about how studios are trying to blame Rotten Tomatoes for movies not doing as well, the bad reviews, which is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to point out. It's just film criticism. That never affected anything. If people like movies, they like movies. That's why the Transformers films weren't affected by bad reviews, so I don't want to hear that. But then this film got really good reviews. A long time people were going, well, the trailers look good. And I hope it's good, but what if it comes out and it gets like 60% on Rotten Tomatoes? Well, then the film came out and it started with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. All the critics on YouTube and the social media started giving it 10s and praising it, saying it was the scariest film in 5-6 years. So then the hype just built even more over the last week. You had a film that had huge trailer hits. You had a franchise that was huge because people all knew that miniseries. It had tons of... I mean, they could have probably sold this as a new miniseries or HBO, Netflix-like event, and people would have watched it. I think this would have been huge no matter where they put it. People wanted to see it. People wanted to see this. People love this freaking story. They, in particular, love the kids' side of the story. They love the loser. They love the Losers Club, and that's the part a lot of people really attach to. I do think it benefited from Stranger Things. You're totally right. Then there's another factor to include. Stranger Things comes out last year, and we've been dealing with this nostalgic thing for a while, and then boom, Stranger Things comes out. It does everything Super 8 tried to do. It's one of Netflix's most successful shows. It becomes a huge, iconic show. I mean, it sells merchandise. People buy t-shirts of it. Everyone listens to the soundtrack. Everyone loves Stranger Things, wants more of it. And we're having to wait for Stranger Things until late this month to get late in October, I mean, to get a new release. You know, releasing, wait, are we... Yeah, we're not okay, but we have to wait for Stranger Things in October, and it's all that hype and build up, and it got people back to loving that Stephen King thing, where it's, you know, these kids on this journey and these characters in this place. It captured Stephen King better than most of his movies ever have. And what's funny about that is the Duffer Brothers were actually attached to this movie at one point. They got turned down to direct this movie. The guys who went on to do Stranger Things almost directed the It movie. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. I'm sure the studio is like foaming at the mouth, like, how did we lose those guys? We've lost two guys who get universally praised for doing their version, basically, of this story. I mean, they basically told their own kind of version of It in Stranger Things, and everyone fell in love with it, and the mythology and the lore and the characters. They even have one of the kids in this movie from Stranger Things. It's ridiculous. All of those factors came in. 80s nostalgia right now is through the roof. I think that's why Ready Player One's getting made now. So everyone's loving that. Horror films, as you see, as I showed you the pattern with Annabelle and The Conjuring, huge right now. Pennywise, Tim Curry's performance never losing popularity. Tim Curry's performance is still popular today as that character. People still watch clips from that. None of those things died out. Getting good reviews. Letting people feel comfortable to go see this movie. You know, I had a lot of friends I talked to, and I told them, like, you see, it's got like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and they were like, oh, I'm going to go see it now. They weren't interested until they heard it was good. They were interested in the idea of an It movie, but they didn't know. And $35 million budget. I thought it was going to be more than that. I thought they might have put... I wish they would have put more money into the movie now that I see it. Because one of my only issues with the film without going into review is some of the CGI needed a little bit more work, and if they'd spent $50 million on this film, or like $60 million, this film could have had perfect CGI. And I don't know. I mean, it looks really good for $35 million. They have a great cinematographer on this film and all that, but I don't know. It's like, you know, I don't think even they knew it was going to open this well, because this opening weekend's so good. They could have spent a little bit more money on this film. They could have spent $50 million on this and helped and kind of just, you know, the rough edges of the CGI and some of the spec, because the Pennywise stuff's really cool. I just wish, now I'm seeing it, I'm like, man, I mean, you've already made a profit. This movie's already made a profit in its opening weekend. It's had to have already made, I mean, this would be a great final total. Let's eliminate this as an opening weekend, okay? Don't look at the opening weekend. Just look at these numbers if this was the final total for this movie. If this movie had a $35 million budget, and let's say they spent $50 million on marketing, honestly. Let's say $85 million in this, you know, but let's be even conservative. Let's say 40 or whatever. But let's say they have $80 million in this film. If you looked at this total and you saw $117 million domestic and $179 million worldwide, you'd be like, well, that's a really good total. This film actually did really well. Like, this would be nothing to laugh at. This would be a good number for this movie. But the fact that this is the opening weekend is insane. This film's first day was $51 million. Then it had a second, the Saturday was $45 million. Then it had a little bit of a steep drop on Sunday, but that's typical for horror films because people like to go see them at nighttime during Friday and Saturday. Still, $117 million opening weekend for it. This is the highest opening weekend for a horror film by far. It's the second largest R-rated opening weekend behind Deadpool, which opened to $132 million. And obviously Deadpool had a big girl audience, and it had the superhero factor and stuff like that. But this is comparable to Deadpool. Very low budget, giving the fans exactly what they want. And the biggest thing for me is this settles the debate on Dark Tower. This is the end discussion of Dark Tower. Because everyone kept telling me, like, hey man, it doesn't matter if they make a loyal adaptation. They just need to make a good movie. People don't care. They can just do whatever they want. Why are you being so mean about this? People went in wanting it to be the book and they couldn't accept it for what it is. Blah, blah, blah. The same excuses everyone gives when they make a bad movie. It's the same thing I'm hearing now with the Death Note movie. Like, well, hey, Adam Wingard wanted to tell his own story. He didn't want to do the anime. Okay, well, if he wants to do that, don't call it Death Note. Don't include the Death Note, Ryuk, Light, L, all the characters that were created from Death Note that are original to that show, and all of the most interesting things about your movie. Let's take out all of the let's take out Roland and the Dark Tower, and let's take out all of those things, the Gunslinger. This would be a terrible CGI generic blockbuster. Nobody would go see it. People only went to go see it at all because it had the name Dark Tower on it. And guess what? They made a bad adaptation of Dark Tower, and it bombed. It just proves my point in my original video. If this had been an actual Dark Tower film, if this had actually been an adaptation of The Gunslinger, or if they'd done the TV show, this film could have done it numbers. This film could have opened to $90 million. This film could have made this kind of money. So I don't want to hear any more excuses that the Stephen King brand is dead or it's something like... No. It's because they never make Stephen King movies the way that people want them. People want them to be what they felt when they read those books, or why they like Stephen King. This movie doesn't capture anything of Stephen King. Okay, and the bad reviews came out, and everyone didn't... They were like, well, this sounds like crap, and it looked bad. It had good trailers. You know? Here's the main difference between these two films. One film tried to be loyal to the source material. One film didn't care. And this film cost $60 million. It cost twice as much as it did. And it's already made more money in its opening weekend than this film's made in its entire total. So anyone who's keep giving this film some excuse for being a different adaptation or being a sequel, and it's not the original, and it didn't matter, and you should just respect it for what it is as an entertaining 95-minute long adventure piece. No! It shouldn't be 95 minutes. Also, let's look at the runtime of it. Oh, wow, look. 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's almost like you can make a long movie and people will go see it, Sony. So, enough defending Dark Tower. It sucked, it bombed, and it's exactly bombed because they made a bad Dark Tower could have made Lord of the Rings money. Dark Tower could have been that kind of franchise. Don't tell me it couldn't have been. It's ridiculous. So stop it. I know I sound like I'm being a whiny little brat here, but so many of the comments and so much of the crap I got on my Dark Tower video was that I was just judging it as a bad adaptation, not as a movie. It's like, it's a bad movie and a bad adaptation. Okay, this It movie isn't a totally loyal adaptation to King's book. Quite frankly, not at all. It cuts a lot out, but it still gets the essence of what it was about. And that's what's important to people and why the movies make money. Death Note didn't get the essence of it, and people are responding to it negatively. This movie's gonna have a sequel that may not do as well as this film because it doesn't have the kids in it, but it's still gonna be huge. We're looking at a film here that's almost guaranteed to make $250 million domestic, if not $300 million domestic, and easily $500 million worldwide, especially with a great foreign number like that, $62 million. So we're looking at a film that's going to make over $500 million worldwide on a $35 million budget. Take that, Dark Tower. This is crazy box. This is the best opening weekend for any movie this year. I don't care what anyone has to say. Wonder Woman's opening weekend, nothing's more impressive because of the budget. The budget being so low, this being rated R, this is the same opening weekend as Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's just think about that for a second. This is the same opening weekend as Spider-Man Homecoming. That is crazy. I think it'll be big, but you got to think about this, dude. A big thing that people love about it in that miniseries is the kids. And the kids in particular fighting Pennywise. The adult story to a lot of fans is not as popular from the books or the miniseries. So it really depends on if they can sell the trailers, if they can make us feel scared for the adults like they did in these trailers for the kids. I think it's going to be a huge movie, but do I think it's going to open above this? No. I think this is going to open at 100. I think the next film will be lucky to open at 100 million in 2019. I think it'll be huge. But this had a lot of factors going into it. It had the Spielberg thing with the kids and Stranger Things. That's not going to be in the second film. Like I said, that doesn't mean it won't open to like 85, 90 million. But I really don't think it's going to do as well as... This is going to be something that's going to stand out, you know, for a long time. Hey, I'm busy. I'm busy doing something. But this is the biggest. I mean, this is the biggest opening weekend I think in the last few years. Dude, I'm not knocking you. I'm not saying that the film won't do well, but you have to understand a sequel doesn't automatically mean it's going to make more money than the first film. I've been fooled by that for years. Where like you just assume the second film's going to do even better as well, and that doesn't always happen. Age of Ultron, you never know. Like, what if the second film isn't as good? What if it doesn't get 88% on Rotten Tomatoes? What if it gets 70% on Rotten Tomatoes? You know, we don't know yet. We have to wait for the movie to come out. We have to see the trailers. It's really tough to call the box office for a film before you see the marketing campaign and all that. That's the biggest issue with looking at the box office to films is before you see, you know, because I would have guessed Guardians of the Galaxy 2 would have made, you know, 1.1 billion. You know, but you never know. You got to see how it performs, you know. But still, you know, they don't. I think this is a franchise. I agree with you. I think this is a franchise starter. I'm not arguing that at all. It doesn't need to pass this opening weekend to be a franchise. Like, if the second movie makes 90 million opening weekend or 110, that's still a franchise. Like, they're not going to spend. They're probably going to spend a little bit more money on the sequel now because they're going to have to get some big name lead, you know, big actors. I don't think they're just going to be able to hire, you know, they didn't have to pay the kids much. They're going to have to hire some name actors. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about yeah. Not really, more of a friend, not really family, more of a friend. One of my roommates. I have 4 roommates. My girlfriend's one, and then I have 2 other roommates. But one of my roommates was coming in, and I was like, I'm busy. Although my family does come over and see me a lot. I live near my family, so. But there's a lot of people in this house a lot of the time. There's usually like 8 or 9 people here. So it's very tough to record. People come down here all the time while I'm recording videos. No. This isn't going to be an extended universe at all. Dark Tower ruined that. There's not going to be a Stephen King cinematic universe like there could have been. And this proves that this could have been a Stephen King cinematic universe. That there is the possibility for movies like this to make this kind of money, and Stephen King still has this kind of draw. This is the most successful Stephen King film ever. I mean, this is way better than what The Green Mile or Shot. I'm not saying it's the best movie at all, but like, no Stephen King films made this kind of money. This is crazy. I mean, I'd say get ready for a Pet Sematary remake to be coming out soon. I'd put a lot of money on that getting speed tracked a lot. I'm thinking we're going to be seeing a Cujo movie soon. I'm thinking we're going to be seeing a Christine movie here soon. I'm starting to think we're going to be seeing a lot of Stephen King movies here soon. I think The Stand's going to be pushed much quicker. I think they're going to be looking at this and going, "Oh wow, Dark Tower made people worried." No, I think we're going to be seeing especially the horror books. You know, because Carrie didn't do well, the Carrie remake, and they thought it was going to do a lot better. But I think they're going to go for those high concept Stephen King books like this, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this. It's kind of ridiculous. Which King book? I think Pet Sematary, man. I think Pet Sematary is probably going to come out in the next year or two after this movie's doing so well. Like, because they could make the argument Pet Sematary could open to 50, 60 million. The Talisman, any of those movies could be made now. I mean, this is going to... We'll probably be seeing a Dead Zone remake. I could definitely see the Dead Zone becoming a movie now. Yeah, Pet Sematary is the obvious answer, I think. You have the same kind... You have a classic book. You have a film that a lot of people watched and they were scared of the kid in it, and you could do a remake just like this. I don't think it would do this well, but it would still be huge. Like, even 1408 a few years ago did really well. I think, you know, like, you get someone like how Cusack was a guy then. Yeah, I would like to see a Running Man remake, too. I agree with that. I'd like to see the satirical element stick. But I've always wanted to see a movie of The Long Walk, but Frank Darabont owns the rights to that book, and he says he's waiting his whole life. He says it's going to be like his swan song movie. So I guess we're going to have to wait till the end of Frank Darabont's career to see The Long Walk, which I think is one of King's absolute best novels. But this is, you know, 180 million opening weekend. Absolutely crazy. Kudos to the director. I talked a lot of crap about this guy the last few months. I harped on Mom a lot, but man, this guy, I mean, he's going to be a named director now. I think a lot of this comes down to the studio and the marketing and all, obviously, but it just shows getting a new director, recasting Pennywise didn't affect anything. The brand was big enough to last beyond this. I mean, it's honestly one of the most impressive opening weekends I've ever seen since I've been a box office guy. Like, it's one of the most in my life. Like, I didn't think horror films could open over 100 million. I literally didn't think it was possible. I thought the highest a horror film could open was probably like Hannibal did years ago, the sequel to Silence of the Lambs. That film had like a $58 million opening weekend. I thought that was probably as high as a horror film could go. I would have never thought that this film could open this. I mean, this is great. Those are blockbuster numbers. I mean, this is a blockbuster. This is a better opening weekend than like Dunkirk and the Emoji Movie and Despicable Me and you know, Wonder Woman. It's better than that, and War for the Planet of the Apes, and I mean all of these movies. It not only outperformed them, it kicked their butts. Oh man, I skipped over The Hitman's Bodyguard real quick. Let me mention that. $30 million budget, probably had a lot in marketing. 64 mil domestic, not bad, but you know, just an okay performance. Nothing to praise, just an okay. But let's get back to it, man. Like, I'm trying to find a negative here, but I can't. They made a film for $35 million, and it's made $117 million opening weekend. I mean, you just have to. You can't make that. This might end up being the most profitable film of the year. It's going to be fight between this and Despicable Me and like Get Out. But man, I mean, God, the studio is going to be printing. And think about the merchandise they're getting off this. People are buying merchandise, and the DVD sales are going to be huge. And like this, I mean, this is the real deal. This is the kind of stuff that puts a studio on the map. This is the, you need some tangents. Yeah. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up on some of your comments. I need to see. I agree. I don't think they'll be able to make a kid as creepy as the original one in Pet Sematary, but I think what they could do in the new movie is make Louis Creed a much more compelling character and get a better actor than they did, because I think he's one of the best King characters. And if they got the right actor to play that part, that movie could be huge. If they got the right guy to play that part, that would be enough. Because you would care about him. Because it's supposed to be about the loss he feels with his children. And the other Pet Sematary movie was too concerned with the horror elements that it forgot the psychological elements. And I want a Pet Sematary movie that goes into the psychological elements of loss and how you deal with it. Because I think that would be... I think it could be the Don't Look Now of modern day. I think it could be just as effective as that movie was in the 70s. It's... Yeah, this is really, little kids were at your It screening. That's crazy. That's the thing I'm hearing. I'm hearing teenagers are going to see this film. Girls are going to see this film. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. No way to spin it. Even my only complaint, and this is a complaint, a personal one, not knocking the studio at all. Warner Brothers. This is wow. Warner Brothers and New Line. Wow. So they have this in Wonder Woman. Oh, New Line, man. So the guys who Nightmare on Elm Street. This is kind of awesome, man. Think about this. This is the house that Freddy built, man. New Line, Nightmare on Elm Street, man, built that studio. And for years, you know, I think Scream came from there. This I'm glad this is coming from New Line. I'm a huge New Line fan going back in the day. They were, I mean, I think they lost their way at some point. But, man, they like worked on the Lord of the Rings films. They believed in Peter Jackson when nobody else did. So it... Oh, I agree, dude. I think the book It is one of the most overrated books like ever. There's probably 600 pages of that book that I think are bad or mediocre, and there's like 400 pages of it that are great. There's this great story in there with the kids and Pennywise and this little horror story. Then it's surrounded by all this terrible subplots. Way too much use of the N-word and fag in that. Like King was a little too... Like, I'm not someone to, like, be an SJW about that stuff, but King was just using that stuff freely. He writes the most over-the-top, stereotypical, stupid bullies I've ever seen. Stephen King cannot write a nuanced bully to save his life. Like, you know, he... Yeah, I mean, I love seeing this from New Line and Warner Brothers. This is just a hit for everyone. Nobody's got any back end on this, I can't imagine. I don't imagine the director or any of the kid actors have much back end on this, so this money's going to go straight to the studio. Man, this isn't even box office 101. This is like box office, you know, a million. This is how you do it. This is how you market a film. This is how you release a film. This is how you make a film. This is like a textbook example of how you do it right. How you satisfy fans and newcomers. Kind of like how Force Awakens did with J.J. Abrams. This is as well executed as that was for financial success. Kudos to everyone involved. I can't wait to cover this next weekend and the drops. I was so excited to talk about this. I can't believe it took me an hour to get to this. But after my review comes out this week... Sorry, Pennywise coming after me. I always forget to drink water during these box office streams. It really screws me up. Gotta drink more water. Anyway, still, like I said, I think this is a lock for 500 million worldwide. You just have to say that. Unless the second week is crazy drop and this is front loaded. And I do think this is going to be front loaded. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the second weekend's going to be as impressive as this was. I don't think it's going to drop bad, but I definitely, still, the weekday box office numbers, oh my god, and then this is going to, throughout October even, this is going to get a huge boost, coming into the next month. Like, this is going to play well all September, and then probably play well through October. So, oh my god. It's not even that I think it's overwritten. I think a lot of the stuff he wrote in the book's just bad. That's really what it is. It's still great that New Line's name's there, man. Like, it's still great that the name's there. You know, but, man, yeah, it's not that I even think King overwrote that book. I think he just adds a bunch of bad stuff in it. I think there's, like, there's probably 100 pages of that book I think are objectively bad. I think badly written, badly thought out. I think just terrible. Like, The Stand has a lot of those same flaws, but it's still pretty consistent throughout when it goes up and down. And I don't like the ending much, but it will be like, you'll read some parts and it's like it's a great book, and then you'll go to another part and it's like an exploitation book. It's like King loses all the nuance, and you know, he even said he didn't remember writing Cujo. It's an unfortunate, you know, thing where he had this great story in his mind and a lot of great things came out of it, but unfortunately he tried to turn it into, like, it feels like a Dark Tower book at some point. It has so much crap, and it's like, god damn, dude, like, can you say some of this multiverse, this big universal stuff for your other books? I don't like any of that. I actually don't like the two parallel stories getting cut back and forth between the adults and the kids. I don't like that in the finale of the ending of the book. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and no, it's all crazy. Like, it's so crazy over the top, and it's not some of King's best stuff. It really isn't. King's done that stuff a lot better after that, and I don't know. I think it would be a much better book at 500 pages. It's like a perfect 500-page book. It doesn't need to be 1,000 pages, and it doesn't need half the. I don't mind him giving the backstory on Derry and hinting at Pennywise being there forever and all that stuff, but he loses. You know, I just never liked the adult versions of the characters as much as I liked the kids. I always thought the kids were more interesting, and the book spent a lot of time on the adults, and I didn't like it in the miniseries, and I think the movie will do a better job with that, but I always thought the kids were the heart of the story, you know? It's not... You feel a lot more for kids changing in life and growing up and dealing with this thing than you do for people in, like, the 30s or 40s. Yeah, all that stuff's crazy. Yes, there's a god turtle, yes. Yes, there's a god turtle. The kid talks to him. That's how he performs Chud and is able to defeat Pennywise and all that. I mean, it's so crazy, you know. And it's not as cool as like, it's not that cool of lore in it. It's just kind of like, yeah, this is stuff that's in comic books, man. This is like cosmic comic book stuff. I've read, you know, Jack Kirby worked on stuff like that. You know, I've read this stuff. I much prefer the idea of the kids being in the town, having to team up and fight this clown. And him reflecting their worst fears, and then their worst fears coming out, and now it reflects their home life. Which the movie, you know, is captured. This movie captured what a lot of people connected with that story, was they connected to the kids as kids. They connected to the fear, the coming of age. They connected to all of those things, and it all played into this film doing so well. Nostalgia is a powerful thing. If you watch one of the last episodes of Mad Men Season 1, it might even be the last episode of the first season. It's called the Wheel, and it's Don Draper. He comes out, and I always reference this. He comes out, and they bring him a photo thing, and it ends up being the carousel. It's the photo thing they had where you put your photos in, and it would play like a projector. It would show you one photo after another, and you know, they're changing it up because obviously Don Draper, the character, didn't come up with that stuff. But it's a brilliant little monologue he has at the end of the first season of you know, actually, I'm just going to show it, because screw it. I was able to show stuff last weekend and nobody really cared. Let me see this. Isn't there a religion that has a god turtle, or at least believes the world is pitched on a giant turtle? Yeah, there's something like that, but, hold on, because I think this totally summarizes why this film did so well and what markets you need to tap into. Hold on. And I think this captures at its best why this stuff did so well. So, basically, Don Draper explains to these men at this board meeting, the Kodak. He gets Kodak. It's a big contract he gets in the first season. He explains to them very beautifully how nostalgia is the greatest marketing tool to use to people. To get people to buy your product, to get obsessed with your product, is to give it a sentimental value, to give nostalgia. And Stephen King's book, It, at its best, taps into that, and that's why I think it was so successful. It goes back to your nostalgia for fear as a child, as opposed to the fear you have as an adult, which is a more realistic fear of getting stabbed or murdered. You could be scared of clowns like that as a kid. Don Draper here explains this, and I think this is a perfect way to explain the opening weekend of this movie. So instead of me trying to butcher it, I'm just going to play it out and let you guys see what I'm talking about. And for those of you who haven't seen it, this is why It can make $117 million opening weekend. This is the power of marketing and brand, and when you do nurture it and take care of it, and you do know what you're doing, and you do know how to make your audience get what they want. When you give the audience what they want, and you can make them feel at least a little bit like they're getting something that's familiar to them, something that they've been attached to from the past that they want back. Maybe even the feeling that book gave them or the miniseries gave them. When you can tap into that, you have them. You have them, and they'll never be let go. You know, they'll never leave you. They'll be so attached to that feeling because it's the feeling we all strive for in a way. But let's watch this clip a little bit, and we'll break it down a little bit more.
This is Joe Harriman and Lynn Taylor. No Eastman's tour, but well, technology is a glittering lure, but there's the rare occasion when the public can be engaged on a level beyond flash if they have a sentimental bond with the product. My first job, I was in-house at a fur company with this old pro copywriter, Greek, named Teddy. And Teddy told me the most important idea in advertising is new. Creates an itch. You simply put your product in there as a kind of calamine lotion. But he also talked about a deeper bond with the product. Nostalgia. It's delicate, but potent. Sweetheart. Teddy told me that in Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound. It's a twinge in your heart, far more powerful than memory alone. This device isn't a spaceship. It's a time machine. It goes backwards and forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again. It's not called the wheel. It's called the carousel. It lets us travel the way a child travels. Round and around, and back home again. To a place where we know we are loved.
God, if I ever in my life could write a scene that freaking good, I would just retire on it. Oh my God, that is one of the best scenes I've ever seen. Listen, David, let me give you a piece of advice on that Mad Men thing. Everyone who says that about Mad Men hasn't watched Mad Men. That brilliant little monologue you just saw there by Don Draper is the finale of the first season. Everyone I've ever talked to that can't get into the show says the same thing. Oh, I started watching it early on and I couldn't get through the first episode or the first few. It was slow and boring. That's how everyone feels. The first few episodes are that way. Then once you stick with it and the nuances start to come out and the complexities and the layers to the story, you will get emotionally devastated and drawn in by the philosophical questions and the ideas of humanity that explore. Season 2 of Mad Men is the only show of any of the writers who spin off from The Sopranos who ever captured the essence and brilliance of the Sopranos. And season 1's all a slow build-up. Mad Men seasons are slow builders, and that first season builds up to an emotional climax with Don Draper and Kodak. There's a lot of things going on there. And that's ultimately what the show's about. It's a spiritual show, and it takes a while to get the groove of it. At first, it is a little cold and detached, and that's kind of the idea of it, is that at first it feels like it's very shallow on the surface level. It is what it is. It's all production. But then it really starts to get under your skin, and after a few years, you really start to get affected by it deeply. It cuts deep. So I would recommend trying to burn through those first episodes and get over that initial feeling and get yourself to the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2. And if you don't like it by that point, you maybe never like the show, but you should always give the whole first season a chance of Mad Men, because a lot of people get put off early on and they don't realize what they're getting into. The show literally just keeps expanding and getting better as it goes on. So, I had that issue too initially with Mad Men. I thought Mad Men was the same thing, and then I kept watching it, and I realized how good it was, like, and how I was being clouded by a lot of things. So anyway, that monologue, the only reason I put that up, because I've been putting up movie clips lately, and last weekend I had a lot of fun putting up the clips for you guys. That was a good time. The only reason I put that up was, in essence, that better articulates my point than I can make in this whole thing, because it's written very beautifully. It articulates why they even have the whole projector thing in the It movie, with the kids. But that trailer tapped into something like that with people. That connection, that the idea of this movie come out tapped into something that is greater than any marketing campaign could ever be. It's what any ad agency would want. It's to transcend the ad. It's to be something more. And I think it did do that, and that's why it's so successful. So, that was an important... That's why I thought, yeah, Fox doesn't let shows get through the first season. Yeah. I mean, Mad Men's a slow burn, man. You got to kind of get through it a little bit. You got to be patient with it. It's not a quick show. It takes a while to really pick up the pace. But once it does, man, like season 2 and 3 of Mad Men, I think are just like perfect. Have no issue with them at all. So I just say stick it out. I think you just wrote a scene that good with your recommendation of Mad Men. Well, I am a writer at heart. There is a little bit of the writer in me. But Mad Men is definitely one of my favorite shows of all time, and I have an extremely emotional attachment to it. For the reason that it does make you think about what it is to be human. And it at least for me in particular, it really made me think about my humanity. Because Don Draper's as gray of a character as Heisenberg is on Breaking Bad. And he's a lot more realistic of a character. He's not some super genius guy who's making meth in Albuquerque. He's like a real guy that feels like he existed. The show looks like a Wong Dor-Rai movie. It's freaking gorgeous. Oh, the whole thing, it has the best production value like I've ever seen on a TV show. But Mad Men's wonderful. But let's quit talking about Mad Men. But that clip to me is such a great summary of why this did well. And this is what studios need to do. This is what Disney does so well with the Marvel brand, and what Marvel does so well, and why Star Wars does well. It does tap into something greater than what the marketing is and what the ads are and what the trailers can be. It does tap into something. I've always had the problem with the psycho bully character in it. I always hate Stephen King. He can't write bullies. Hey, you got to be fair though. John Hamm is in Baby Driver, and that was a big hit. So maybe his career is opening up a little bit. He is in Baby Driver quite a bit too. And in my opinion, actually kind of like one of the best parts of the movie. So, he's not out of the game. John Hamm's always kind of been a working man's actor, Don Draper was just that one big role for him, but he's always kind of been like a working stiff kind of guy. Yeah, wow. If you guys want to ask some questions before I wrap this up, that'll be cool, because I think that clip pretty much said everything I could possibly say. And any of you saw it and you like this movie, that's awesome. Leave your opinion in the comments section, I guess, once I put this up. I don't know if it matters. See how close this was to your predictions. If you think this film's going to... How's it? I guess we're just going to have to guess the second weekend at this point. I'm not sure. And mainly I kept getting in arguments with people on Twitter all day about Pootie Pie, but, whatever. Yeah, no, I'm trying to start the campaign of getting Colbert in trouble for his deeds, just because like it's the double standards are absolutely beautiful here. But yeah, if you guys have some quick questions before I wrap this up, I would love to talk about anything. Back to it. Who would you want to see in a sequel? Jessica Chastain as the adult version of God, I can't believe I can't think of her name right now. Becky. Yeah, darn, why can't I think of her name? The girl in the group. Bev? Is it Bev? God, what's her name? Is it Beverly? I think it's Bev. I want Jessica Chastain to play that role. I think she would actually be very good in that role. I want to see good actors. I want to see really, really good. Yeah, and you got to take in the Florida box off. Florida, I mean, the worst hurricane, like some of the worst hurricanes ever going on right now. And Florida's a huge market. Florida's like 6% of the box office market. PewDiePie said the N-word in a live stream and everyone's going after him. Basically, he was getting frustrated it's Beverly, yeah. I want to see Jessica Chastain play that part, but yeah, you got to think, if this movie didn't have the issue in Florida, this would have probably passed Deadpool. Like, this movie probably would have made $135 million opening weekend. Yeah, I think it's going to be front-loaded, too. I think a lot of people who wanted to see this movie, it's like, when a movie has hype like this, a lot of the time, everyone who wants to go see it sees it in opening weekend. And, you know, you have to see after that how many people really are going to go see it. You know, because Wonder Woman's a great example of a film that opened at $100 million but then made $400 million, had a huge draw. We're going to see in the coming weeks how big of the market is for a horror film like it. He always, yeah, I don't, who cares? You know, it was whatever. I was getting in some debate with some chick on Twitter. Yes, I did hear Jennifer Lawrence's comments, unfortunately. I want really good actors, though, to play the adults. I think it's essential that you have to get people that have some presence, too. Like, because you're going to need people to go see this movie, and you can't just cast no names. You need to bring in some people that we really, I'm not saying Brad Pitt, but the adult versions of the Losers Club, I think a couple of the actors in particular need to be big names. And people that it's like, wow, you got them to be in this movie? That's crazy. Because they need to have that presence about them, you know. I think they need to be actors who can really bring it home. I'm not saying all of them, you know. It should be a mix of smaller named actors and big name actors. Is my opinion. Just actors I guess I'd like to see in it. I'm trying to think. Who'd I like to see play like Bill in that? I don't know why people are obsessed with it. Some girl was trying to argue with me on Twitter that black people are allowed to say it no matter what, and white people are never allowed to say it under any context, and we argued about Tarantino. We argued about Tarantino's use of it. We argued about rap music, because my argument was like, well, they use it derogatory in rap music all the time, and she was saying that we transformed it. So I was like, wait, so when a rap song does it, it's not transformative. It's literally just being used in a derogatory way. How's that any different? It's the same thing. You don't get to, like, cut corners and decide. Sam Rockwell's a terrific choice. Good on you. Wasn't that John Boy? Richard Thomas, John Boy from the Waltons? Didn't he play older Bill? That's funny. No, it's like Voldemort. People give this meaning to this word, and then this black was arguing that we transform, we own it. It's like, you know, you don't own words, right? You don't own a vernacular. You don't own a meaning of a word. You don't get to, like, oh, I own it because I'm black, and only black people own it. That makes no sense. That's ridiculous. You have to be just as responsible with that word as you expect white people to be when you use it freely. Okay, Spike Lee uses it just as freely in his films as Tarantino, and has white actors say it just as much. So you have to criticize Spike Lee just as much. Rappers do use it constantly, nobody cares. Kendrick, and people try to tell me it's with nuance. I listen to rap. I listen to a lot of hip-hop. Most of the time, when they say that word, it has no nuance to it. They're saying it in the most derogatory... They're still talking about hitting women. They still talk about busting caps. I mean, even Kendrick Lamar, one of my favorite rappers, he still uses that word in a very derogatory way. And they say, well, it's okay. We're allowed to do that in culture. It has a different meaning to us than it does you. It's like, that makes no sense. So you get to choose what offends an individual black person or not because you speak for black people in this blanket statement way? It's freaking ridiculous. And they don't want it. They hate the rap double standard. Whenever you point that out, it's the immediate triggering. They're like, no, how dare you say that? And it's like, dude, I don't tell you, it's true. Rappers use that word way too freely. They throw it around. They throw it around way too much, and they don't give a crap about the responsibility of that word and who's listening to that word and who it affects. And nobody jumps down their throat for that. And if you try to, you get labeled a racist. Yet PewDiePie says it pretty unoffensively. He says it kind of like, gamer speak, trying to talk trash and be ridiculous. And everyone goes after him. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. So if somebody does the Nazi salute as a joke and they're on YouTube or Reddit, they're a Nazi. If Stephen Colbert does it on his show to make fun of Trump, he's not a Nazi. He's a satirist. I see. So when a rapper uses that word, it's transformative and has context, and it's them owning it again. But when a white guy uses the word, like Tarantino in Pulp Fiction, context doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the nuance or anything like that. White people just can't say it. Because who cares? It's holding hostage over a word, that you get to hold a word in prison or something like that, and then you get to make the rules. You get to make the rules? When did that start? When did we start making rules, man? That's complete fascism. Screw your fascism. I'm going to say whatever I want. I don't use that word. I don't like saying that word. But I don't care when other people say it if they're not using it in a negative, derogatory way. And guess what? A lot of rap movies do. A lot of rap and Spike Lee films do. I've watched Do the Right Thing, okay? I met Spike Lee in person. He came here to the university, and I met the man. I shook his hand and heard him do an interview. And he was asked this very question about that word, about the use of it in his movies and what people should tell. And he just basically said, like, get over it. Spike Lee, the man himself, he was sitting there, the most, like, in-your-face black filmmaker who even criticizes Tarantino, but he even told the guy, he told this guy who was asking, what do I tell these black kids that I'm working with, these inner-city school kids, what do I tell them about the use of the N-word in your movies? And he goes, whatever. He goes, that's the life I grew up in, and people said that word, and I'm going to put it in my movies because movies reflect life. And we like to pretend that white people or other people don't say those words, and it's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's a false sense of reality, and it's this idea that black people are morally superior with their understanding of language. Somehow they have a better moral context and understanding of using any words than white people do, which is ridiculous. That makes no sense. It's giving them. Sam Rockwell's a great choice, though. Although I'm going on a patriarchy tangent right now, and I don't need to be doing that. That'll lose subscribers. Even though so many people are confused about the channel changing its name to Please Rewind. I get asked daily, like, what happened to Renaissance Men? Where are you, bro? I'm like, I left. I'm sorry. I'll be back there again. Do you know that moment when you came to the channel and you didn't see my footprints in the sand? That's because I was carrying you. I was carrying you over the beach to a better place, people. Don't worry. I'm here for you. I'm still your Lord and Savior. I'm still your Kira or your Jesus or your Muhammad, what have you. I'm your prophet. Don't worry. I'm here, guys. I will lead you to the path of righteousness. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, great opening weekend. Wonder Woman, doing awesome. Spider-Man, terrific showing at China, 823 million worldwide. Dunkirk, great performance. Annabelle Creation, going to make 100 million, totally mind-blowing. Baby Driver, great. Not really much. Dark Tower, take that. And, I'll celebrate a movie bombing. I love seeing Dark Tower do bad. Screw it. It was a bad movie. Bad movies should do bad. When the filmmakers don't care, then that's how it should be. I think you are more of a Moses. You're probably right. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a bit of a Moses. Thank you. I always like to think of myself that way when I go to bed at night. Peace to be. Pat Ryerke has returned from his slumber. It's like the Death Note. I got my hand on the like a book again, and then I got all my memories back of being Pat. It's like, oh my god, white privilege. Oh my god, I feel it. Yeah, no, Spider-Man's a big hit. You can't deny it. Spider-Man's a big hit. So, anyway, guys, if you don't have any final questions before I leave here, I need to end this soon because it's getting a little late and I haven't eaten and it's 8 o'clock. I don't have any shows to watch tonight. Twin Peaks is over. Game of Thrones is over. Nothing for me to watch tonight. What the heck, man? Unless David Lynch is going to troll me and release episode 19 tonight, which I would absolutely love if that happened. Yeah, our Lord and Savior, Pat Ryerke. Yeah, oh, Lordy, Lord. Oh, Lord. Lord, put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air and praise be. Praise be, my young ones, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, the feminists will not defeat us. I will lead you to the Holy Land. They will not tell you that because you are white you do not understand the world. They will not tell you because you're conservative you are evil. They will not lead you to hell. You are not a Nazi. You are a good person. I will lead you out of the fires of social justice into a world of coolness and shitlords. Who would you kill with the Death Note? Why is it such a big hit? I showed the Don Draper speech. Nostalgia, tapping into an emotional core deeper than what we have. Nostalgia, that's what it is. When you tap into a deep emotional core, a sentiment that people can cling on to and go to that place, and then they want to go to that place when they go see a movie. That's exactly what this movie did, and that's what all successful films do. The most successful films. Would I kill with the Death Note? That's ridiculous. Oh my god. I don't know. I don't know big on killing people. I guess some North Koreans. I guess I would be kind of like, all right, let's get rid of the leaders of North Korea. So the way I can think, just kill off like everyone, and I guess that's the only answer. If I was being pragmatic about it right now, I guess that's who I would think of. If it was personal, oh boy, I don't want to name those people. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I guess I'll wrap this up. I want to have more discussion with you guys, but this ran a little late, and the fact that the first stream didn't work sucked. But all of you stuck around after the first stream's audio fell apart and come back again. Thank you. And I'm going to try to avoid that issue next weekend and do a lot less of the music intros and outros, and really bring it back to just opening up the live stream, talking, and then wrapping it up. But I hope you guys liked the insight this weekend. I hope I gave you at least a perspective on it you maybe didn't think of before. And always, it's great to have you guys in the chat talk with me and listen to my crap. And it makes life worth living a little bit on these boring Sundays that we have. On a rainy Sunday, it's nice that we can sit around and talk about clowns killing children, and child orgies, and PewDiePie saying the N-word. It's absolutely wonderful. Or the Cajun Southern Boudin Bayou world that we live in. Yeah, we'll definitely start doing a sound test. We'll definitely start doing a sound test from now on. I agree with that. Yeah, it happens. It happens. I just hate repeating myself. I had to repeat myself after that, and I was like, eh. But this was... I like the music, too. I'll play you guys some outro music. I won't be a total jerk here. Hold on. Let me put on some Sharkfoot for you guys. I like the intro-outro music, too. I usually put... I mean, this originally started with like a minute and a half of music before the live stream went out. Because I always play the music at the beginning to give you guys time to come into the live stream before I start. Because I want to give you guys a little breathing room to come in. And then I always do it later. But bye!